Most new creators are laser focused on just building and finishing their template, and they often forget about three key things until the last minute when it's time to submit their template for review. The template name, the descriptions, which is basically the copywriting you need to do for the template page, and the thumbnails. So, all three of these things are front and center on the Webflow marketplace. So, you need to have them prepared and done before you can submit your template to Webflow for review. So let's talk about the template name first. Now, Webflow prefers that you choose a one word name for your template, and most creators follow that rule, including me, although technically you are allowed to have more words in the name. Now, the key thing here is that the name itself doesn't matter that much. So, I see a lot of creators obsessing over choosing the perfect name, but the truth is, the template name is just like a label or an ID for your template. It's not supposed to be descriptive, it's not supposed to tell people what your template is about, and most importantly, your template's search visibility isn't determined or impacted at all by the name. So, honestly, don't overthink this one. Just pick a name that sounds simple and memorable. So, I prefer real words as template names like Absolute, Paramount, Strata. I just think they sound more confident and more professional than made up names, but honestly, that's a personal preference, not a requirement. You can pretty much choose any name you like. One important thing to remember is that Webflow requires each template name to be unique. So you cannot pick a name that's already taken or a name that another template that's published already has. So, for example, I have a template called Nico. So you cannot use that exact name for your template. In the template submission form, which we'll see in more detail in the next video, you'll see that in the template name field, if you try to type in a name that's already taken, the form will give you an error message and tell you to pick a different one. Now, I'd highly recommend that you choose your template name as early as possible and check to make sure it's available. The reason I say this is that you're probably going to be designing your template's logo around the name. You're going to use that logo in the header, maybe in the footer. You might also reference the template name in a bunch of places in the template. So, if you only find out at the last minute when you go to submit the template that the name you wanted is already taken, that leaves you in a bind. You will not only need to think of a new name from scratch, but you'll also have to go back and change the logo, change it in the header, footer, wherever you used it in the template. If you've mentioned the name in a couple of places in the copy, you're going to have to go and edit that out as well. And honestly, this can take quite a bit of time and also be really frustrating. So just try to pick a name as early as possible and make sure there is no other template on the marketplace with that name. Now let's talk about template descriptions. And you'll need to write a short description and a long description for your template. And you want to put a lot of thought into this part because this ultimately determines whether your template shows up when someone is searching for templates on the Webflow Marketplace or Google or any AI search engines. So, as far as search visibility and SEO are concerned, your template descriptions make a huge difference. So, even if you take ChatGPT's help to write them, be smart and intentional about what you include and which words you use. You don't want it to be generic ChatGPT style fluffy words like a modern and responsive template for startups. That's too generic. No one is searching for that. People are usually searching by things like their industry or certain template styles or features that they're looking for. So you want to be smart about the type of words or keywords that you include in your descriptions to make sure that they can help the right people find them. Now, for the short description, there is a 250 character limit, so you need to be super concise. But there are three things that I try to always include in the short description: the template's purpose, its style, and who it's for. So, here's an example of a short description from one of my services templates. I very briefly mentioned the template's style, dark and modern, who it's for, AI consultancies and tech firms, and its purpose to showcase services, case studies, insights, and so on. So, this is a good format to follow for the short description. Basically, you want to add the most important bits here that can immediately help someone figure out whether your template fits their needs. This is where the long description goes on the live template page. And for this one, there is no character limit, so you can pretty much add in anything about the template that you think will give buyers more insight into its features, value, make them want to buy it, and also help with search visibility. I typically start with an overview or an introduction for the template, then I reiterate in a bit more detail who the template is for, And this is a great place to get in some important keywords. So anyone searching for the perfect Webflow template for their business has a good chance of finding yours. For example, if your template is for marketing agencies, then you want to use keywords like digital marketing, advertising, social media management, branding, etc. So that if anyone is searching for one of those keywords, like if someone's looking for a template for their advertising business or their social media management business, they can find yours. And once they come to the template page and they're reading through the description, they can easily identify those keywords and go, yeah, that's me. This is exactly for me. Of course, it is important to be honest and authentic here. You don't want to stuff keywords just for the sake of covering every possible use case. You want the description to sound like natural sentences, but just try to think which words you would search for if you were one of these businesses and try to incorporate those in your descriptions. After describing who the template is for, I usually list out all the pages it includes. So I think this is a good idea because if people look at it in a glance, they'll know everything they'll get if they buy it. And after that, I'll usually add some of its best features and again a bit more detail on the ideal use cases for anyone who would buy it. I prefer to format all of this with lots of headings and bullet points with short phrases instead of long paragraphs because I think it's just easier for people to skim through a list. And I would recommend that you do the same because honestly, no one really likes reading on the internet. And when people see long blocks of text, they just usually skip right past them. So be concise, be intentional, and format your long description very neatly so it can help you attract the right buyers. Finally, let's talk about thumbnails. So you probably already know that the thumbnail is featured very prominently on the marketplace. And of course, it's your template's first impression. So it needs to be very clean, impressive, and professional. There are some Webflow rules about what you can and cannot include in thumbnails. For example, you're not allowed to use any logos, so you cannot have your company logo or Webflow or Figma logo or anything. You cannot have badges or any text or captions in the thumbnail. You also cannot have any CTAs like new or buy now or anything like that. It needs to be very, very clean. Also keep in mind that you need two thumbnails, a primary thumbnail and a secondary thumbnail. The primary thumbnail is the one that appears by default on the marketplace, and the secondary one appears when you hover over the listing. So you need to submit two thumbnails. For the thumbnail design, I would highly recommend that you keep it extremely simple and just show the best designed page or best designed few sections from the template. I would not recommend that you go for stylized mockups or collage style thumbnails or even try to show multiple pages in the thumbnail because it can actually make them look very cluttered. What I always do is add the first couple of sections from the homepage as the primary thumbnail, and for the secondary one, I'll either show different sections from the same page or maybe another page from the template, like the About or Services page, whichever I feel is best designed. But I always use the home page and the hero section as the primary thumbnail.